Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Ryan back at it, bringing you another fantasy football video for 2020. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys an episode on fantasy football busts and players to avoid. I'm going to be giving you a few names at the top of my list, and so we're going to jump right into it. And I'm doing busts based on where they're getting taken with their ADP. So while they may not be exactly horrible busts, they're busting for where their value is right now. So the first guy I'm going to start with on this list is running back Mark Ingram. Currently, his ADP is in the 5th round. I've been seeing him getting taken ahead of guys such as David Montgomery, Cam Akers. He's right around that range. And for me, he is going to bust for that ADP. So when we're looking at Mark Ingram, I know if you look at his season in 2019, he did phenomenal. He finished as running back 8, had 15 total touchdowns, which is very good. But when you look at it, he was super dependent on touchdowns. Now, certainly the Baltimore's offense is still going to be very potent, but right away, I don't expect them to be winning as big as they were by as much as they were. I think their total offense efficiency is going to go down even in the slightest. And Mark Ingram, he's bound to score less touchdowns than he did in 2019. And you can't even count on him really to be that workhorse back with that offense. In 2019, he never eclipsed more than 19 carries in a single game. And he only had more than 16 carries twice in the season. Another thing that's going to hurt Mark Ingram's stock is his absence in the receiving game. I know last year he had 5 receiving touchdowns, but that was only on 26 total receptions. So at that rate, it's about almost 20%, or 1 out of every 5 catches resulted in a touchdown, and that's just impossible to sustain. It's going to regress. He's not going to get that many more receptions, and he's not going to certainly get that many touchdowns. So it doesn't help, too, that the Ravens just drafted J.K. Dobbins in the 2nd round. They're going to see what they have in him. He's a fantastic, versatile running back. He thrived in the run-play option, which is Lamar's game. That's when Lamar is playing his best. And you also worry that how many times is Lamar going to take it on his legs? He had over 160 carries last year on the ground. It's not going to change. We know that's his go-to. That's just the type of player he is. So Mark Ingram's absence in the receiving game, along with him just not getting volume, he's not going to be nearly close to a workhorse. He just has a lot of stuff not going for him. To be drafted in the 5th round ahead of guys like David Montgomery, even Cam Akers, who has a great opportunity to take over the starting role in Los Angeles, but certainly David Montgomery, who we know is a lock for 250 carries, his volume is going to be way more, and if anything, David Montgomery's regression is going to be positive, unlike Mark Ingram. And if that doesn't concern you about Mark Ingram, note that Mark Ingram had 202 carries last year, which ranked 20th among running backs, and that's a scary fact considering the Ravens led all teams in rushing attempts. So Mark Ingram's volume is just not going to be consistent at all, and to see him going ahead of those running backs before mentioned is just crazy to me. Shouldn't make that mistake. Volume is key in fantasy football, and Mark Ingram is not going to have that opportunity to do it. The second name on my list of players to avoid that they're going to bust based on their ADP is Austin Ekeler, running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. Austin Ekeler is currently being taken around the early 2nd round, and I've even seen him go as early as the late 1st. That is just way too early for a guy that unfortunately has experienced a major quarterback change, which is going to be the main factor in why his value is going to massively decline from what it was last year. When you're looking at starting Tyrod Taylor week 1, which I assume will happen, you're taking a major downgrade from Phillip Rivers, not only talent-wise, but also in the terms of how many times your quarterback is going to throw the ball. And like we know, Ekeler thrives in the receiving game more than he does in the rushing game. And even if we see Herbert take over, I don't trust a rookie quarterback to sustain Austin Ekeler for a 1st or 2nd round value in fantasy football. Now, while Austin Ekeler has a good chance to improve his role on the ground in terms of volume and workload, he still has a very crowded backfield in which he has to deal with. The Chargers' backfield is not exactly a clear one. They just drafted another running back, and they still have Justin Jackson, who the GMs have been vocal about in his talent and say he's a very complete running back. So we're not totally sure about where Ekeler stands in terms of how the running back carries are going to be split exactly, but we can't just assume Austin Ekeler is going to be a workhorse back, considering we've never really seen it. And the Chargers offense is not going to be as potent now that they're missing Phillip Rivers as their quarterback. The Chargers are a team that are going to start winning by their defense. They're not going to be thriving in offense in really any categories. So I don't expect Ekeler to have those games like he did last year, where you're seeing 15 receptions, because that's just not the quarterback that Tyrod Taylor is, and it's not the quarterback that Justin Herbert is going to become. Because the Chargers are losing Phillip Rivers this year, I expect their offense to take a step down from what they were at in 2019. That being said, Austin Ekeler is just not going to have that much volume, and he's not going to have that much opportunity on a team that's not going to be scoring as often and leaning on their defense to win games. That being said, I think Ekeler's value right now as a late first, early second round is just not justified, as we don't know how at all his new system is going to be and how well he's going to be playing with Tyrod Taylor. And I think it's certain that Tyrod Taylor is not going to throw the ball as much as Phillip Rivers did. Therefore, Austin Ekeler is just not going to be getting as many looks in the receiving game, which is what he really depended on and why his value was so great last year. The third player on my list is tight end Zach Ertz for the Philadelphia Eagles. And before I go into Zach Ertz, I want to say it would not surprise me if he was still a top 8, definitely top 10 tight end. But I'm considering him a bust because he's going as a third tight end off the board in most leagues. And his third or fourth round ADP for me is just way too high, considering there's guys that I would much rather have. And I'll get to that in a second. But the problem with Zach Ertz certainly isn't the volume. Last year, he was the second leading tight end in targets. Only one with more targets was Travis Kelce, and he only had one more. The problem was that with that mass amount of targets, he still didn't finish as a top 3 receiver. I know he missed a game, but he was out there on the field as literally Carson Wentz's only viable offensive option at one point, at least receiver-wise. With Deshaun Jackson was hurt, as well as Alshon Jeffrey, and Zach Ertz took advantage of that target-wise. But like I said, the problem was he still didn't finish as a top 3 tight end. And now certainly this year, with a healthy Deshaun Jackson, presumably Alshon Jeffrey will be back and healthy. They just spent a decent draft capital on rookie wide receiver and Jalen Reagor. And you can't forget about Miles Sanders, who's going to take targets out of the backfield even more this year, I think, as he's a breakout candidate. Despite all those offensive players I just mentioned, the one that's going to hurt Ertz's value the most is other tight end on the roster, Dallas Goedert. Now, Dallas is a guy who, when Zach Ertz was out, he led the team in targets. He's becoming more and more a part of the offense, as we've seen. He's emerging. He's a good talent. Everybody knows that. If Zach Ertz wasn't on the team, Dallas Goedert would be a top 5 tight end in most leagues. Now, that being said, the issue is that they're going to split targets more so this year than I think we've ever seen. And Carson Wentz still, he throws the ball enough to support the value for 2 tight ends, and we've seen it. He was 5th in passing last year. He threw around 600 times, and that's very repeatable. But what's not repeatable is Zach Ertz's 22% target share that he had last year. With the Eagles receivers coming back healthy, Dallas is going to take another step up in that offense, as we've seen him be able to do. So Zach Ertz certainly is going to be a starting tight end in every league. That's not going to be a question. Just a matter of fact that he's going in the 3rd, 4th round is a little bit absurd to me, considering there's people I could get later, such as Tyler Higbee or Mark Andrews. And somebody like Higbee, I know he's going to be a bigger centerpiece of that offense. We saw him strive in the later quarter of the season, and he's in a better offensive situation where they throw the ball more. Jared Goff led the league in passing attempts. And someone like Mark Andrews, who also I believe's target share will decline, but he has far less offensive competition in terms of receivers versus Zach Ertz and his Philadelphia situation. Another final concern for Zach Ertz, you can take it how you want, but he did reportedly turn down a mega deal with the Eagles that would have been more than Austin Hooper's, so he would have been the highest tight end in the league. And for him to turn that down, I kind of take it 2 ways. One is that Zach Ertz maybe feels like he'd go to another team and be that superstar tight end, as we have him seen do it before, like in 2018. And it worries me a little bit because now I feel like the Eagles will definitely want to see what they have in Dallas, and see how they can start to play without Zach Ertz in the scenario that he becomes absent from the team, whether he gets traded or he signs with another team in the offseason. Zach Ertz is a tight end that if he sneaks a little bit later in the draft and you're somewhere in the maybe later 5th, 6th, you're not a huge fan of the talent there and you still have your tight end position open and you want to grab him, that's certainly fine. Because he does have a solid floor, because we know he's going to be a part of that offense even with Dallas and the receivers being healthy. We know he has superstar ability. That's not the question. It's just a matter of fact of how high his ceiling really is in that offensive situation. So, like I said, if he's still there later and you want to grab him, he could be a great pick. Just for right now, I'm considering my tight end bust because of how early he's being taken in most leagues. The fourth and final player on my list for today is wide receiver Stefon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. This is another scenario kind of like Ertz where the player's talent is not the question at all. We've seen Stefon Diggs make great plays. He's great in the open field, solid hands. It's just a matter of fact of where he is. In Buffalo, we know that they don't like to throw the ball a lot. They rank 24th in passing attempts and 26th in total passing yards. Not a great scenario for a receiver where you're drafting him and presumably to be your wide receiver too if you go heavy on running backs. Two of the main issues for Stefon Diggs in Buffalo are indeed volume and consistency. The fact that they don't pass the ball that much is already a concern, but then when you look at who's throwing the ball when they do, it's Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen is not the greatest quarterback for Stefon Diggs for two reasons. First reason is that he's wildly inaccurate. He ranked 32nd out of the qualifying QBs that were ranked for completion percentage at a mere 58%, not very good. Another reason he's not a great quarterback for Stefon Diggs is that he likes to take it on his legs. He was second only to Lamar Jackson in rushing attempts, and he's already made it clear that he's a guy that likes to get it done with his legs just as much as he likes to throw the ball. You can say that the Vikings do run the ball heavier than the Buffalo Bills do and will, but you got to realize who's still on the Bills roster. They still have John Brown and Cole Beasley, who last year both got over 100 targets. So sure, Beasley's going to drop in targets, John Brown's going to drop in targets, Stefon Diggs will lead the Bills in targets, but that's not going to be very much said considering how much Josh Allen is going to take the ball in his legs. So I'm not confident in Stefon Diggs' volume, even though he's going to become the for sure number one receiver. And to add injury to insult, even if he is getting the majority of targets, I don't expect his completion rate to be very high considering Josh Allen's inaccuracy. And now he's going against Stephon Gilmore twice a year, and he has the 31st hardest schedule for wide receivers. So if you happen to find any of these guys on your roster after your draft, I don't think they're necessarily going to kill your team. It's just a matter of fact that I'm considering them bust based on where they're going, because if you look back, you'll see at the end of the season where you took them, there's going to be a ton of players around them that would have given you way more value, way more consistency, and opportunity as well even, and those are the things that are going to make the playoffs for your league and ultimately win you the league. You guys should all do yourself a favor and don't draft these guys. Seriously, don't do it. You'll thank me later, I promise. Stay tuned.